Ever wonder how a top fashion website is made? Well, on today's video, we're going to take a look at Nolook Inc. And as we can see from their homepage, we have this really cool effect going on. So when I move my mouse across and up and down the page, we see that the box follows us around, and so does the text as well. We also get this cool little shadow effect as we move around too. And we've also got this text effect too. So what we're going to do is basically recreate this from scratch. Ours is going to look something like this, which is using the same kind of effect. We've got our box following us around, we've got the text moving around as well, and also the shadow. Now, there's a few different things we need to think about when we do this, but we're going to show you how this is made from scratch. So first of all, let's start somewhere. What I've kind of got is a very, very basic website to begin with. Let's have a look at the HTML and CSS that makes this basic version. So here, what I've got is an index.html. It's got a header with our kind of iTime, ink, and a nav. And then this is just separated with a flex box. And then down here, I've got a section with hi here, which is basically set up in the middle right now. So I've got my header and a section over here. In my style sheet, it looks very familiar. So I've got my kind of typography, I've got my resets in here. I've got some general kind of CSS variables with the usual kind of stuff in here. My whole page is currently a grid. It's a 12-column grid. My header is kind of spanning two. Let's just give it a background color so you can see it. Background color red. So there's my kind of sidebar. And then on I've got my usual stuff in here. And then on my section tag, this is just the rest of the page. It's spanning 10 columns. So currently we've got this in here. Now I've got all of my stuff within my section just moving into the center using a flex box as well. And what we're going to do is just basically make some content that moves things into the center. So rather than hi, what do we want to do in here? So I'm going to get rid of the word hi and let's have a look. The first thing I'm going to do is just set up a general holder for this because I want to just hold all the things on this. So div with the class of holder, and I'm going to just basically start this up. So in here, I'm going to do section space div.holder, and then I'm just going to give it a background color of green for now, just so we can see it. And what we'll get is if we save this, and let's just add hi in there for now. This is just a green hi. So I'm just going to give this some size. And what size do you want to give this? So let's have a look. Let's say this is, first of all, let's make it position relative. And the reason I'm making it position relative is just because of the layout makes sense for this. When we look at this final version, we've got this kind of like overlay. Position relative is perfect for this. Let's give it a width. And this is going to be, I'm doing this in rems actually, rather than pixels, just to make it have a nice resize value. And you can see this is 48 rems. This is root ems, so it's the root is just the text default size times 48. And this height is going to be 32 rem as well, just from my notes. So basically this is the kind of like play area, I suppose, of what we're going to do. I don't want the word hi in here, but instead what I want is actually three things. I want my image, I want my shadow, as we can see from behind. We've got this yellow shadow, and I've got some text in here as well. So let's just quickly add them. So instead of hi, I'm just going to add a h2 with the text, which is stray from the path. And what we should see now is this looks like this. I also want a div with the class of shadow. And this is just going to be an empty div tag because this is just going to be the kind of background of this kind of image. And at the moment, there won't be anything in here because we've not styled it. Now, there's two options I could do next. One is I could do it as an image, or I could do this as a div. Now, I'm going to do this as a div because I've got this parallax effect on here. So notice if I go side to side, the image in the background is kind of moving around with this. So if I go to the top and the bottom, notice this kind of gap above and below the image. So it changes. So this is using some parallax effect. It's a little bit easier to do this as a background image. So I'm also going to add in a div with the class of image. Now, what we want to do is start to style this up. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is actually style this image up. Now, what I'm going to do here is add in a CSS variable. Now, the reason I'm doing this will be a bit clearer later when we start to kind of play around with the text. And for now, I'm just going to set it as another root. I could just do this at the top, but I'm just going to put it here for now. Now, the ones I'm going to put in here are just based on ones that worked well for me. So I'm going to put in here box X is going to be at a certain position in here, which is 20 rem and 0. And the text X is going to be at 0 rem, and text Y is going to be at 18 rem. Oop, not 118, just 18 rem. Now, the reason I'm doing this is just the coordinates of where it's going to go in the end. So this is going to be shifted and shifted up and down. And what I want to do is just set these up. So to do this, I'm going to set the, first of all, div with the shadow, and I want to do the section with the div image. Now I want to use position absolute here, and I'm going to give them a left position, var dash dash box dash x, and top var dash dash box y. I'm also going to give it a width. 28 rem looks good on both a height and that, and we'll give it a background color in here of this highlight color. So this is just going to place these two boxes in the same position. Now I can't see my image right now, so that's what I'm going to do next. So I've got my section div image. What I'm going to do in here is basically have a background image. URL is going to be photo.jpg, and I'm going to give this a background size of cover and a background position in the middle at 50% and 50%. So now we should see the image. Now what I want to do is move this H1 and just move it into the right position. So here I'm going to do this section H1, and I'm going to use my variables from up here, same way that I did with the section shadow and image. So position absolute. I'm going to put the left as the text X, and the top as var dash dash text Y. And we also want to make this above. So at the moment, this is currently behind. Did that work? Oh, H2. There we go. My fault. Let's make this above this. So let's just change the Z index to 1 so it goes above. And let's give it some width so it doesn't go on to, it looks a little bit nicer. So the width here I'm going to pick is, let's have a look at my notes, it's 32 rem. There we go. And last thing I'm going to do is just get rid of my background green. So back in the holder, just going to get rid of that. And what we've got is basically the setup version. But of course, what we want to do is when we move the mouse around, we want to shift these around as well. But we've set up our HTML and CSS ready to go. So the goal of what we want to do is when we move our mouse around the page, we get our boxes and our title kind of following us around. So we need to do this with a little bit of JavaScript because when our users moving the mouse, we want to basically update things. So how do we go about doing this? Well, there's a few things we need to select. We need to find out where the mouse actually is on the page. We need to find out where the box is. We need to find where the text is and then move them accordingly. So how do we do this? We're going to go back to our code and we're going to add some JavaScript. We're going to make a new file called move.js. Now, I want to tie my move.js into my index.html. So I'm just going to add this at the bottom here. So I'm going to add a script tag with the source of move.js. Now, if we call it something else, we just update this file name accordingly. But what do we want to do in our move.js? Well, the first thing I want to do is select the section we're talking about. So I'm going to do this as a constant, and we'll call it section. This is going to be equal to in our document. Document's a special word in JavaScript. We want to do something to the document. So we do a dot, and we want to use a query selector. And then we want to run this with round brackets. What do we want to do in here? Well, we want to select the section. Now, if there's a lot of sections on the page, we want a class, we would do section.floaty, let's say. We've only got one section, so we can just write section. Now, what we want to do is also get things like the image, we want to get the shadow, we want to get the title as well, because we want to move those around as well. So we're going to select them as well. So let's get the image, constant image. Now I could put document here, but I can actually use the section we just used, section.query selector. I'm just going to pick the div.image. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the other ones. I want to get the shadow on the section. I'm going to use a query selector, and there's a div.shadow in there. There's also a title, and I'm going to get the section, query selector, and it's just a H2. Now, what I want to do is basically have a function that when I move around the page, I want to update something. And what I want to update is kind of some movement, essentially. So here, what I'm going to do is have a constant called move. But this isn't going to be equal to section dot whatever. It's actually just going to be a function. Function is round brackets, an arrow, and curly brackets. Now in here, I'm going to open it up just to make the writing a little bit easier. And what do I want to do in here? Well, what I want to do is move, let's say, just for now, the image. So if I want to just move the image right now, what I could do is something like this: image dot style dot what? Well, there's a few options in here, and we can see that we've got things like in our style sheet, things like we've got left and top, we've got all these kind of positions that we could use. But what I could also do is use a transform here. So here, what I'm just going to say is transform, and this is going to be equal to, I'll just do this in a backtick for now, translate, and then round brackets, how much we want to translate it by. Something like minus 100 pixels, comma, minus 200. Ooh, plus 200 pixels. I don't know, it doesn't really matter too much. If I save this right now and I go back to our site, what we'll see is nothing has changed because this function never runs. So if I run it, I will do this after. I'm going to do move and then round brackets to basically run this. So as soon as I load the page, this should move. If I save it and go back, notice this has moved 100 and 200. It's moved minus 100 backwards in the left direction and 200 down, which is kind of what that expects. But I kind of don't want to do this instantly. I want to do this on mouse movement instead. So I'm going to get rid of this and replace it with documents dot add event listener. And in round brackets, I'm going to run this when I load the page, but I want to listen out for what? Any mouse move event. And what do I want to do when I do a mouse move? Well, I run a run move. So what this will do is as soon as we move the mouse, this will run this function. So let's see this in action. If I refresh, then I'm not touching the mouse until I touch the mouse 1 pixel and it moves, which kind of makes sense. You know, this is kind of what we've done. As soon as we move the mouse, run this function. I don't want to run this like this because that doesn't look very good. But what do I actually want to do here? What do I want to translate by? Well, I want to translate by something related to the mouse itself. Now, what I can also do is pass in an event in here. So I'm just going to write the word event. Event is basically given to you by the browser. It's basically kind of like a freebie, and it gives you more information about where things are. So let's, for now, just call something like this. Let image x be equal to what? Well, let's say this is currently minus 100 pixels, but for now, I'm just going to call it 100, and then let image y be equal to 200. I'm going to update this in a second with the actual math from this, but let's replace this 100 and 200 for what we've got here. So in my code, I'm using these backticks, by the way, because it means I can put some variables in here. I can put a $sign, curly brackets, and put in image x. And here I'm going to do this with $sign, curly brackets, image y, if I spell image correctly. Now, remember what I was doing in my style sheet? I was mostly using rems, so I'm also going to make these rems rather than pixels as well. So I'm just going to replace the pixel with rem, and then because they're quite big, I'm just going to make it -1 and -2. All this will do is just move instantly, and what we'll get is something similar to before. And if I just change these numbers to 4, this is just going to make it move as soon as I move the mouse in the same way. So instead of it being 4 and -1, what do I want to do? Well, what I want to do is basically calculate the actual number here. So to do this, I need to kind of use the mouse event, which gives us this event, and then basically kind of do that, kind of work it out. And we'll kind of start to kind of piece it together a little bit. So what we're going to do is actually replace these with event.clientX and this one event.clientY. Now this is basically a pixel coordinate based from the top left corner of the browser screen. So if I go at the moment and refresh, this suddenly, as soon as I move my mouse, looks really like, oh, where did it go? If I move my mouse right up to the corner here in the top left corner, notice that this is being moved back in the right place until I hit right in the top. So this is just in the top corner. So this is basically quite a big number, and it's always from 0, 0. It's always going in the kind of wrong direction, basically. Now, the first thing I want to do is this event X, client X and client Y, are based on pixel units, and they're based from here as like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pixels. But let's just kind of use the browser width and browser height to basically kind of normalize this. Normalize it just means kind of make it in a kind of good range. Divide it by window.inner width, and let's divide this by window.inner height. So what this is now going to do is say, well, rather than this being 0 and this being 2000, let's say, or 1200, now this is 0 to 1. And the height is from 0 to 1. So if I'm in the bottom corner down here, just like near my camera is, then the maximum it will ever be is 1, 1 movement, and this one's going to be 0, 0 movement. So it is kind of moving around now based on my mouse movement, but it doesn't look very good. Now, what I kind of want to do is have this in the middle being 0, 0, and this maybe moving to the left if I'm over here, and this to the right if I'm over here. So what I'm going to do is actually normalize this from not 0, 0 in this top corner and 1, 1 in the bottom corner, but this being -1 and -1, and then in the middle being 0, 0, and then 1, 1. So to do this, first thing I'm going to do is times this by 2. 2 times this. 2 times this. Now, why 2? Well, what we've got now is this being 0, 0. In the middle, it's now 1, 1, because that was a half before. And this now is 2, 2. So 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2. If we take 1 away from all of this, it'll be -1, -1, 0, 0, because it's currently 1, 1, and then 1, 1. So we're going to -1 and then -1 from this. So now what we get is this going in the correct direction, and this is all based on the center position now. So what we'll get is this kind of looking a little bit nicer. Now, what I might want to do is this is kind of almost like a normalized version here. So what I could do is say, well, this movement's not enough. Maybe what I could do is times this all by 3. Well, the quick way to do that is actually in here itself. This is almost like a -1 to 1, but then in here what I can say is like 3 times this, and then 3 times this, let's say. And what we'll get now is this kind of effect. So this is kind of moving around based on my mouse position. Now, of course, what I can start to do is do the same thing, not on the image, but also on the shadow and title. So just to show you very quickly, what we could do is take this line and then copy and paste it, and then replace this shadow with the same thing. This one could be a different number. So 2 and 2 rather than 3 and 3. And we can see now that we're starting to get something a little bit different. Let's do it with the title as well. So here, let's add the title in here. Let's change shadow to title, and then maybe let's make this 1, 3, 2, and 1, not 21, and this one 1 as well. And what we'll get now is we start to get this kind of movement. Now, this movement isn't quite as nice as what we have here. This one feels a lot smoother. So what we need to start to think about next is adding the idea of something called tweening. So the idea of tweening is basically we're going between two different numbers. So what we can see when we look at this site is there's almost like a delayed effect to this rather than this, which is snapping to where the mouse is currently. So what we're going to do is add some animation into this as well. To do this, we're going to make a new function in here called animate. So animate, we're going to do a function, round brackets, an arrow, and then curly brackets. Now, what we're going to do in this animation frame is basically say, well, what we want to do is hold where the mouse position is and then move the current state of where the image, shadow, and title are and move it towards that rather than being instantly. At the moment, this is instant movement. We want it to be towards that. Now, in here, what we also want to do is set up our animation loop because we want to loop this every single frame of the page. So just like when we've got this add event listener, which is listening out for any movement, but we want to run this every single frame. To do this, we're going to add in animate. We're going to run this as soon as we start the page, but then we're also going to say request animation frame. And we want to run animate on the next frame. So what this will do is it will start on the first time we load the page with animate down here. And then as soon as we do the next frame, it will run again and again and again and again. So if we are doing 60 frames a second, this will run 60 times a second. But this code is currently empty beyond this. What do we want to do in here? Well, the idea of what I want to do is kind of split these two things up. I want to find out where the mouse is and then move this towards where the mouse is over time. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to hold some variables instead. So we're going to hold in here, we're going to say let the aim of x be equal to 0, and then let the aim of y be equal to 0 as well. So the starting point is basically no movement. Now, when I move my mouse, what I want to do is say, hey, I've moved over here, I've moved over here, I've moved over here, and then aim towards this. So we're also going to say, let there be a current x. This is also going to be equal to 0, and a current y. And this is also going to be equal to 0 as well. And what I want to do is split up my move function to not snap instantly, but instead move, the mouse says, update the aim, where should we go to? And the animation frame should be move current towards where we're aiming towards. So to fix our kind of code right now, what we're going to do is say, instead of let image x, we're going to say aim x is equal to this. I don't need let because I've already decided what let is above. And I'm also going to say aim y as well. It's in here. Now what I want to do as well is take my image, shadow, and title and move them into animate, because these will still move even if I'm not moving my mouse anymore. So I'm going to take these three, I'm going to cut them out and paste them into here. So let's close this a little bit. Now this image X doesn't exist anymore. It's now aim X. Now if I just quickly to test, if I change this to aim X, aim Y on all of them, let's just try this out. What we'll do, and this is kind of what we'll have as the same as before, it's the same kind of thing as before, except we don't have any tweening. So tweening is basically going between where we're going towards and where we currently are. So to do this, what I want to do is replace aim X with where should it be? Current X. So current X instead on all of these, and current Y on all of these ones as well. Now, what we'll see now is basically no movement because current X, current Y don't update. Now, to do this with tweening, what we're going to say is we want to update the current X to be slightly towards where the Y position is. So we're going to say current X. We're going to add a little bit, so plus and then equals, the difference between where we are right now and where the aim is. So in brackets, we're going to say where the aim of X is minus where we are right now, current X. And then let's multiply that by not the whole distance, but only a little bit. So we move a little bit closer every single time, something like 0.1. Current Y is going to look exactly the same. We're going to say aim Y minus current Y, and we're going to times this by a little bit as well. So if we save this now, what we should see is we get this tweening effect. It's a lot smoother than what we had from before. So one thing you might notice is our shadow disappears on this final version, but on ours, it doesn't, because basically the numbers are different. So what we've done here is this one is 3 and this is 2. So the distance is basically different. So let's just match that up and see what happens. So 3 and 3 and 3 and 3. So if we look at it now, what we'll see is our shadow never appears. Why not? Well, what is happening right now is basically the image and shadow are always doing the same thing. They're always kind of moving at the same speed because this aim and this current X and current Y are always the same kind of distance. So what we want to do is have different tweening for different things. So we're going to replace current X and current Y with basically the kind of image and shadow having different numbers instead, because they're moving at the aim at different paces. So what does this look like? Well, what we're going to quickly do is take current X and current Y, which is in quite a few places, and actually just replace it with image X and image Y. But we're also going to add in a shadow X equal to 0 and a shadow Y equal to 0. And instead, what we're going to do in our animate function is replace the first one with image X and image X, image Y, and image Y. It's going to be a bit of changing a few things here, and we'll do image X on all of these for now, and image Y on all of these for now. We're just replacing the variable names right now, and this should look the same as before. And we're also now going to basically have a shadow X and shadow Y doing the same thing. So I'm going to take these two lines and copy and paste them. But instead now, this is going to be shadow X and shadow X. And then this is shadow Y. And this one is also shadow Y. And I'm also going to then update my shadow to just have shadow X and shadow Y. Oops, knocking my mouse over there. Shadow Y as well. Now, currently they're both moving at the same pace. This is kind of not doing anything different. We're just basically copy and pasting. So this should look the same until we change this number. So if I change this number now to something like 0.5 and 0.5, they will now have this shadow effect that follows us around. But notice that when I stop, my shadow moves towards a position because the distance is the same, because we've got 3 and 3. It's just now the tweening is different on each of these different ones. So what I've got here is shadow X and shadow Y moving at a slower speed than my image. Now, what I'm going to quickly do is do this for the title as well, because my title might move at a different pace too. So I'm just going to add in a title X equal to 0 and a title Y equal to 0. And I'm going to do pretty much the same thing here. So we'll just update these variables, title X and title X, title Y and title Y. And then on the title itself, I'm just going to add in title X and title Y. And now what this means is I can change this number as well. So if I want this to be really slow, let's say, like this is 10 times slower than this image one. So now what I'll get is, notice this one takes a lot longer to get where it's actually moving to. If this is really quick, let's say something like 0.2, this is going to feel a bit more snappy. So I can play around with these numbers to kind of make it look a little bit better. So just by basically adding the same effect, except we're changing the number based on different things here. So one other cool feature about this site is, notice this background image changes and it kind of moves around as well. So if I'm over this side of the page, it's going to give me a slightly different image than if I'm moving around the page. So this almost feels like a kind of parallax effect, I suppose. And how do we add this in? Ours currently just looks like a background image, doesn't actually change. So what we're going to do is actually just quickly go into our CSS just quickly. So at the moment, what we have in our image is a background size of cover. But what I can do is just make this a little bit bigger. So for me, something that works pretty well, I think it's 120 times and then auto. Now auto is just to scale it up. So what we should get now is this looks a little bit more zoomed in than it did before. So 100 looks like this. You can actually see the top and bottom appearing. I did it as that, and it kind of just gets bigger and bigger as you kind of like zoom in. 120 looks pretty good for this effect. But what I want to do is update this position itself. So if I'm over one side of the page, it's going to shift it to the right hand side versus 100, which is now on the left. So notice how she's on the left hand side here, but on the right hand side here. So what I want to do is the same kind of thing as what I have in Move, except now I want to update not the image's transform, but I want to do the image's background position. So I'm going to also add in here a let background X be equal to 0 and let background Y be equal to 0 as well. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I want this to be tweened on its own schedule as well. And what we're going to say in here is pretty much what we have from the ones above it. So I'm going to copy and paste this and paste it in here. I'm going to change the background X and the background X here, and then the background Y and the background Y over here. Now, what we're going to do here is change not the title style transform, but the image style background position. Image.style.background position with a capital P. This is going to be equal to, in our quotes, we're going to do the first thing. Well, usually it's something like this, 50%, 50%. Now, what I want to do is base it on background X and background Y instead. So I'm going to get rid of the 50, not the percent. I'm going to put in a dollar sign and the curly brackets and another dollar sign and curly brackets instead of the numbers, and instead base it on the background X. Background X and background Y. So let's see how this looks. If we go back now, it doesn't look too great, and she's kind of sitting in the corner and not really moving around. And that's basically because our background X and background Y currently are a number between -1 and +1. On these ones here, we times it by 3. For us, we want it to be kind of quite a big number. So here, what works pretty well for me is something that looks like this. So we're going to start at 50 and then minus 25 times background X. So what this is going to do is basically say 50% is where we'd be in the middle. So 0 times, this would be 0 times this. And 25 is the kind of distance it moves. And let's try this for this one as well. This worked pretty well. And you can play around with some of these numbers. So here what we've got is something that looks like this. We can see this kind of moving around. If I'm on one side here, there is this kind of parallax effect kind of moving around now. You can play around with some of the numbers in here on the star sheet. So if this is a little bit bigger, something like 150, for instance, it's a bit more clear that she's moving around, for instance. If you don't want the head to be off there because we've got an eyewear, we can change around some of these numbers in the Y position. So maybe I want to do something like 40 and 20. So this would just basically give us some number that kind of moves around in the middle. If I wanted it to go the other way, I can add instead. So this kind of shifts the opposite way. And again, I can just play around with some of these numbers and I get this kind of parallax effect on the image itself. So the last bit we've got to think about is this text overlay. So how is this made, this kind of like masking kind of effect? Well, technically this is a mask, and we'll talk about how this works in a sec. So first thing we're going to do is actually back in our HTML. It's actually to add some more content. Now, technically what this is two titles, and one happens to be yellow and one happens to be in black. So we're just going to add this into our image box here. We're going to use the same H2 from before, and we're going to say stray from the path again. Now, just to kind of make it a bit easier on screen readers, for instance, I'm just going to add this area with hidden equals true. And that basically says, ignore this, don't read this out twice if there's any screen readers. So let's see how this looks. So at the moment, what we'll get on ours is stray from the path twice. And that's because we've got basically two titles in here, and they're kind of doing the same thing. Now, let's just give one a color. What we need to do is some style. So in our style, I've got my section H2, which is doing the correct things right now, but I've also want to kind of say section div image H2, the one I've just put in there, not both of them. Let's give this a color. Let's make it the highlight color that we have. Highlight color, just to see the difference between the two. We can see stray from the path kind of moving around as well. Now, there is a reason that I actually said why we got these CSS variables, because I want to position this text based on the box and this text, the box and the text. So it basically kind of overlays in the way that we want. Now, what we're also going to do is we're going to take this text where the black text is currently over the box and make it behind the box. I'm going to remove my z-index1 and actually just place it on this h2 instead. And what this means is my black text is behind the box, but my pink text is in the box because this h2 is in the box itself. Now, what I want to do is move this kind of in a different position. So to do this, what I'm going to say is this left and top position is different than the default. So the pinks one is different, right? Now what I can do is use this box and basically say the box and the text kind of work together, right? They're kind of doing, some calculation. So here what I'm going to say is my calculation here is I want to take the text position, text X, but then take away where the box is, box X. And what we'll see from this is our kind of box moves around. We can see here that it's starting to be in the correct position if we just leave it alone. Now, we're also going to do this in the top position as well. So we're going to say calc, and we're going to do var, and then text X, and then take away, oh, that's Y, sorry, text Y, and we'll do text box minus y in here as well. And what we can see now is the text kind of gets close, but it's not quite correct. It's almost there, but it's not quite there. So there is a reason for this, and I'll talk about that in a second. But let's just get rid of this text outside of this box. So we kind of just want it black in the background and then pink where we're over the image. So to do this on my div image, I'm also going to add in an overflow hidden. So what we can see now is this just crops it off. If we kind of move it around, we can kind of line it up, but again, we're just lining it up correctly right now. And this only really works when we're right in the middle of the page. So what we're going to do is we need to just shift the text around based on the image and the text, the original text. So what we're going to do is back in our JavaScript. We've got our image X and our title X and Y. But what we want to do next is basically pick this this pink version of the text instead. So back at the top here, what I'm going to do is just say title pink. Now pink, of course, if you're changing it to a different color like yellow, then obviously our variable doesn't matter, but for now it kind of does the job. So we're going to do in our section, a query selector. If we just picked H2, that will pick the first H2, and that would be the original one, but we want to do the div image with the H2. So this is going to be div.image space H2. This is picking a different one than the title itself. Now, I don't need this to kind of work based on another one of these, but this is based on the image itself and the title. So in my code, what I want to do is make a calculation in animate. What is the calculation that I need to do? Well, the difference between them is this and this. So I'm going to say let title pink x be equal to not some kind of movement, but basically title x minus the image x. And let's do the same thing for title pink y. Title y minus image y. So kind of what we've done in here, basically, kind of the opposite really. And let's just update that as well. So to do this, we're going to do title pink dot style dot transform, and this is going to look very similar to what we have up here. So in backticks, translate, and in round brackets, let's put in our title pink x in rem and our title pink y in rem as well. Does this work well? Let's have a look. It still doesn't work as well as we want it to. Now, the reason why it doesn't work as well as we want it to is this has ×3 and this has ×1. So we just need to factor these things in as well. If this is 2 and this one is 2, we also need to multiply this by what these numbers are. So I'm going to take title x and times it by 1, because this is times by 1, and times this by 1 as well, because this one is times by 1. And then this is going to be times 3. Just to match them up. So basically what we're doing here is saying, find the difference between the two and just take them away. And what we should get now is this lines up as we needed to. So it's a little bit complex in terms of like, how do we go about this from scratch? But once we start to get the same kind of techniques over and over again, what we start to get is basically repetition. We're using basically where the mouse is on the entire page, and then we're just holding where things should move towards. These things move towards an end position, and we're using the idea of tweening between this, and then we're just updating a transform or a background position. And then when we want to do something more complex, we can take those two things and then just work out the difference. And what we get is this really cool effect. And we've done it in a fairly short amount of time as well. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I bet you didn't think you'd be getting fashion tips from someone who looked like me. This video was actually requested by a commenter, so if there's anything you'd like me to do in the future, please put it in the comments below, and there should be 2 videos here for you to watch as well.